super excited for this episode where we do an Operation Med Spa first ever and have a guest on. We're going to be talking about what it would be like if we were to be given the keys of our very own med spa tomorrow and what we would do with it. Join us for the ride. All right. Well, this is exciting. This is a first for Operation Med Spa in the studio. So we've done guest appearances before when we're on the road, but this is the first time that we are doing it in our studio. I guess kind of in the studio because Jessica's remote, but still super stoked. So Jess is one of our directors of operation, so opposite Janelle, and she handles all of the East Coast partners. Jess, how long have you been in the med spa industry?
Med spa industry now just over 3 years, about 3.5 years.
Okay. So collectively in this room, quote unquote, if you will, we've got about almost 40 years of experience. So I always love saying that, and I can see from Jess's face
slow blink.
It hit just right with her too. But with that much experience, I feel like we've seen some things that we can't forget, some things we'd like to forget. But in doing that, I kind of thought it would be fun for us to just talk through like what we would do. We've seen people run successful med spas. We've seen people run not so successful med spas. And like kind of, I've had the question before. I don't know if you had, with people asking me, you know, would you ever consider opening a med spa? Have you ever had that question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you've obviously thought about it too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've played around with the idea of if I had one, what would that look like? So let's start there. Let's kick it off. If you guys were given the keys to a med spa tomorrow, what would you do? What would you not do? So let's start first of all with...
I have a clarifying question.
Okay.
Are we talking about a brand new med spa? There's nobody there. We're walking in the door and we have a certain dollar amount and we're starting a med spa? Or we're talking about we're giving you this med spa. What would you do with this existing?
Your choice. Go.
Oh, God.
I'm glad you asked because they're two very different things.
Yeah.
I think there's three very different things. I think there is your blank canvas, like shell of a building.
Mm-hmm.
There's a med spa that has all the stuff that someone just hands you the keys and walks away, including staff. And then there's maybe a med spa that already exists, but all the staff is gone and you get the keys.
I think we should let our guest pick.
Well, I'm going to choose my own scenario. You choose your own scenario.
Oh, got it. I see
Jess.
what you're saying. Like choose your own adventure.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I don't get to pick for everyone?
Yes,
I'm the
no.
guest. Do I get to pick for everyone the scenario?
Fine. And then I might divert.
I think let's start with you're given the keys to a med spa and everything is as it stands.
Okay.
It's not yours brand new. Like everything is there and you're walking into it.
Including staff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Including staff.
Okay. So what would you do? What's the first order of business?
I think, and the reason I chose that one is because I feel like it's the closest to my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
So
so you chose the easy route.
From experience on that. I think the first thing is always putting actual eyes on it. For me specifically, the way that I learn and understand is by observing and seeing. You can read a lot on a page, but until you actually physically see what's happening, you don't really know the entire picture. So number one, observe as much as you can. And from every perspective, from the patient's perspective, the provider's perspective, if there's an operations team, the admin's perspective, that's going to help like really lay out the plan from there.
I agree. What would be the first thing you would do?
I love that. Going along with that, meeting with each employee individually, just to kind of hear like where they're at and get an understanding of how anything they've identified or kind of where they're at in their career at this practice. Shadowing, like Jessica said, the patient experience and kind of that patient flow, how things are going. Looking at the P&L to then validate maybe some of the things that are being identified early on. Yeah. To see if those are things that we're seeing on boots on the ground.
I would say to build on what you guys are saying when you're talking about the P&L, I'm also looking at trends. Like what are the business trends for that particular practice? Because usually if you have some data going, retrospective data that you can look at, then you're able to say, oh, here's something really strong. I want to know what they're doing really well. How are they able to achieve that? Or if it's something weak, what is hindering that so that you kind of know your starting point also from an operational standpoint. I'm also walking the street. That sounds like I'm a streetwalker, but I'm walking the street because
You would.
I would. Because I think maybe this is the marketing perspective for me, but I always want to know like what the demo feels like. And like you said, Jess, you can tell so much on paper, but when you actually walk like a neighborhood and you see the shops and the people that are in the neighborhood, I get a better idea of who my community is and who I'm marketing to. So to understand like who is the patient there and the potential patient. And to me, that's always helped whenever we launch a new clinic or we're looking at a new clinic, partnering with one, I always spend half of the day just in the neighborhood for that particular reason. So I think essentially what we're all saying is we're laying a foundation of where are they at currently and where can we go with them?
It's like we're almost doing a SWOT analysis in the beginning, which is something that we do with our partners. And this is just like a high level. What are we identifying out of the gate? What opportunities have we noticed? And then that sets up our plan for what we're going to do next.
Mm-hmm. I'm also doing a space evaluation, you guys. And maybe that's because of the facilities construction side for me. But I'm doing a space evaluation because I want to clock how many rooms they have. And if it's a good use of the space, if there's opportunity to expand. So that's another thing, because I really feel like if you're being handed a business, it goes a little beyond what we've experienced as directors, which is you're going in and you're helping support someone as a bird's eye view to support them. We're saying this is our business, so we can literally do whatever the heck we want to. So I'm also going to throw in space planning. And staffing.
I'm also identifying like culture. You can tell right away when you get into a practice what the culture is like. Who are your top performers? Who kind of has lead in the clinic, if you know what I mean? Like has a lot of pull. Even if they're not a top performer, you kind of know who's running the show.
In a good way or a bad way, right? So, okay, let's talk about what we do next. Considering all of this, throwing in culture and who's driving, like what is the next thing that you guys are doing in order of importance or in logic?
I think it's identifying who's driving, who or what is driving the business. If we've looked at a P&L and we see what the numbers are, we need to then figure out where that's coming from. What I want to avoid, because I feel like a lot of people go in, and especially with the 40 years of experience, you want to go in and say, well, I know I've seen this before. Here's what we need to do to maximize that or to grow. And that's not always right. So I think it's identifying who the drivers are or what the drivers are. It could be a person, it could be a treatment, it could be something specific to that brand that no other brand gives to the community. And then building a plan around that. But that's going to be more of a deep dive in, I feel like, is to identify what those things are.
Yeah. And then maybe start making some moves. What about you, Janelle?
I think going in after we've analyzed kind of what some opportunities are, what are the easy levers that we can get some bigger wins out of right away that don't do anything that's going to disrupt the team in a way that feels like, oh, great, you're coming in and now blowing up all this stuff. So that could be simple things like if we've identified scheduling opportunities or doing small adjustments on the schedule that are just going to maximize capacity, reducing missed calls, rebooking. These are really easy coachable things that could be big wins just out of the gate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think also when we talked about taking inventory and observing, I think a big part of that, Jess, I think you mentioned the patient experience, but I think even like secret shoppers and shop calls just to see kind of like where they're at. Because again, it's an inventory of where they're at presently so that you know where to jump in. And then I think one of the things, again, going back into like the business owner hat versus the director hat, the relationships. So we talked about, well, relationships on the team, absolutely 100%. But even with vendors, like understanding your standing with the vendors, I think that like if we're saying that we're opening these med spas with the relationships we have now, I'm leveraging my relationships. I'm going to start like saying, hey, I've got a med spa, and start talking through renegotiating contracts potentially, or, hey, how can you come in and help support me? What have you guys seen from this particular account in the past? What have they done historically? What are the opportunities? Looking at the competitive landscape as well. So I think those are the other things also. A lot of things would have to happen in tandem. and move quickly. But I think that you can't neglect that vendor relationship piece coming into it, because inevitably that's also going to impact your P&L, and it's going to impact your marketing and everything, your relationships. And depending on this med spa that we have that someone walked away from, which I would prefer to build my own, but that we're walking, that they're walking.
Wouldn't we all?
I want to build my own. So then after going through that, we talked about vendor relationships, the role that they play as well, and coming into that. You guys, I'm thinking about staffing and how you're evaluating your staff, because let's say that you go in and you've got client flow of like 20 patients a day, but you've got 10 people at the front desk. That's a really delicate balance. So how are you guys thinking about staffing of your clinic?
So I think one thing that we missed is all of these things we've identified and some of the small wins and changes that we want to implement so that we can have those like quick upticks. Before we do any of that, we have to have the buy-in from the team.
Yeah.
And the ownership from their side of it. Otherwise, we're going in and we're just changing things. And change doesn't generally sit well with people. So we need to make sure that it's something that they also believe, because that's also going to help with it being sustainable, whatever that change is. Like if it is schedule optimization, making sure that they understand the why that we're doing that and that they own it and they want it to be successful so that they can carry on with that throughout, the coming weeks.
Yeah.
I think in terms of staffing.
Before we jump into staff, I do want to build on that, because that is key factor in all of this, that you're right. We kind of like glossed over, but change management will be everything.
Yeah.
Because these are not people that you handpicked. These are people that now all of a sudden, I think you mentioned something about like, hey, I have so many years of experience. I've done this before. Just trust me. And we've discussed that doesn't work. You earn trust. You can't come in and demand trust based on your resume. And so there will be, as we go into the staffing conversation, there probably will be, in all honesty, changes. There have to be. If you're going to come in and you have these years of experience, unless everything is perfect and running exactly the way that you would have done it, there are going to be changes. So I agree with you that change management is a big piece of this story at every aspect of the transition.
I agree. And I think to Jess's point too is, just because we have done something before one way doesn't mean it's going to work again, but getting their buy-in to understand, tell me your thought process as to why you chose to do X, Y, and Z. So that before we come in with any suggestions, we can better understand why they've already made the decisions they have. Because sometimes that'll reveal like, actually, I don't know why we have all this, or this person used to be in charge of X, Y, and Z, but now that no longer exists. Then that makes the conversation a little bit easier if we are having to make different moves.
It's also very offensive. Right? Because you come in and you assume you know best before ever talking to them. It is really offensive. I've seen that happen within like the same brand, where a director has come in of a department, gone into a clinic and completely rearranged a room without talking to the providers there, the manager, because they're like, this is the best way to do it because the home location does it this way. And people were wildly offended because they were not actually consulted or spoken with as to why they did it or a part of the conversation. So,
and you learn so much from that. Like I see all the practices that we're working with now, and we have a lot of people who are doing things very differently than things have been done in the past. And I think some stuff I probably would have never thought of, but we see it working. And so by having this open mind, it then allows us to go into these new practices or whatever with just other, I don't know the word I'm looking for.
Other ideas and opinions.
Right.
I think you basically go in with a humble attitude. And I think that's a big factor too, is maybe at the outset, is don't go in thinking that you know best, even if you do think you know best. Like trying to be as open as you can and being humble and open to the idea that there might be a better way to do it, that they're already doing it, that you can learn from.
So back to schedule. I have a question.
Staffing.
I would love to hear too from Jess.
Staffing or schedule?
Staffing, sorry. If we've identified, so we identify opportunities, right? We come in, we're like, ooh, maybe we're overstaffed with admin. That's a very common thing that we see. Where do you start with that? And what are your kind of next steps as you're going through that piece of it?
I think staffing is one of the hardest parts of this. A couple of reasons. A lot of patients that come in might be tied to the staff because everybody on that staff makes the experience that patient has that's bringing them in every day. So I think that's where you have to really be cautious on the changes that you make, but also realizing that you do have to make the right decisions for the overall business. And that's why I think it's such a fine line. So for me, I always go in and I identify what everybody does. Like, what is your role? How are you contributing to the day? How are you interacting with patients? And try and get a good understanding of that. I also think that people get used to doing the same thing every day. So maybe we're not even maximizing their talents. Maybe there's things that they could be doing that are contributing at a higher level. So I think understanding what everybody does and how they contribute is first and foremost, and not necessarily setting a goal of a certain head count. I think that's where people make mistakes. It's really easy to go in and say, okay, there's 10 people at the front desk, there's 3 providers. What is going on here? I'm not talking about anybody specifically. I'm just saying,
No, this
it's
is our
easy
imaginary
to
practice.
say what is going. Yeah. But maybe there's a reason for that, and maybe it's not the most efficient and we can trim it. But I think you don't want to go in and say 10's too much. We need to get to 5.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand what works best.
Yeah.
And that's really understanding what everybody does and how they contribute to it.
I also think staffing is typically, especially administrative staffing, is reflective of the administrative and operational processes. So it could be efficiencies, like you said. So it could be a lot of manual processes, and you really do need that much headcount while you have these manual processes. So I also think it is an opportunity to not streamline necessarily the staff, because I agree. I think the worst thing you could come in and do is be like, all right, we're cutting it. We're cutting everybody.
That's a sure way to have everyone hate you.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't suggest that, but I do think that we start looking, and it's our first day with this clinic, right? So I think if this is my business, that might be a red flag to me. But to y'all's point, that you have to take the time to observe before doing that. So what do you guys think would be a good amount of time to make some gradual changes and adjustments, but to observe the staff, how it functions before you made kind of some serious modifications to staff, if any?
I mean, I would go the first 30 days, I'm just observing and I'm not doing anything major. In the next like 60 to 90 days is when you're starting to, at least is when I'm thinking about starting to make moves.
Interesting.
Some could be a little bit sooner based on what, like I said, what some of the easy wins could be. But if it's anything with like bigger staffing moves, I guess it would depend on.
I would take so much longer than that. What about you, Jess? I will tell you guys.
Wait,
once
are you
guys
talking about getting rid of staff?
If whatever the staffing adjustment is, but like including cutting and reducing staff.
That's okay. Sorry. That's a little bit different, because I think to Jessica's point, what I would do first is there a way to kind of repurpose the role if we've identified, okay, we don't need that much,
or repurpose the person, not the
admin
role.
coverage. Like, can we start to move them to specifically doing other things that are going to help contribute to overall revenue generation?
Mm-hmm.
So then they would have to be in that role for a little bit for me to better understand if this is the right move.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, no more than 90 days. I would at least give it 3 months before doing anything.
No less than 90 days.
I'm sorry, no less than 90 days. I do. Yeah.
What about you, Jess?
I agree on the 30-day observation. I feel like you have to do that.
You think 30 days is enough?
Think during that time, though, if you're really specific on setting the standards with the team on where we're going, you also might have some people realize that they are not meant for the future of this specific clinic because they see what's going to happen and they may self-select out. I think depending on the role, then I might want to give a little bit more time. If it's somebody that's obviously in a leadership role, we want to assess the training and stuff that they've had to make sure that they have been given all the tools and resources to be successful. If it's something maybe more just administrative, I think I probably wouldn't wait 90 days, because that person, if they're answering the phones, that is the lifeline to your business.
Yeah.
Do you have 90 days to wait to make that change? I mean, that could be detrimental.
Right.
So I think it really depends on the position.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if it's just a matter of like, oh, we feel like we've got too much headcount, it's not very efficient, I think that's when you take a little bit longer to figure out, can I move them somewhere else? If you have quickly identified a toxic individual and you've quickly
Yeah.
identified an underperformer that is not coachable, I think you can make those cuts very, very quickly. It's the people that you're like, they're a great addition, but it is extra headcount. Then I think you wait a little bit longer to kind of reevaluate where they go. What about, how are you guys thinking about service selection? Service selection, devices, products you carry.
I feel like this is something I see so often where people are wanting to either make their own mark on a med spa or come in again with experience they've had before and want to add a bunch of things,
Mm-hmm.
or even worse, add a bunch of devices, and then you're left with like that device graveyard in a
The
closet
most
somewhere in the
expensive
back.
paperweights.
It makes my skin itch. It's so bad. So I just feel like this is where you really have to do the analysis of what does the community think you're doing? Like, who are you to the community? Are you the place where you're just amazing at injectables and like they're not really going there for like lasers and stuff? If you added that, is it going to be a value add, or is that going to be weird to them? Like, so what is the community? How does the community see you? And then what is going to make the biggest impact? And I would really do like one focus at a time on a service, and I'd be very conservative with it. I'd want to know that it was successful before I even went into anything else.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think our patients asking for it. Like,
Yep.
is this a gap of it's filling something that we don't currently have?
Right.
Is something important to look at.
Well, I'm looking at existing stuff too. So like if you have examined the P&L and your margins are really, really tight and you're a very small account and you're using some of the big box brands that your margin's not great, I might reconsider how much I use, and I might bring in a product that has a higher margin. That's something I'm looking at. Because the reality, I love all of these products. This is no shade to any particular rep or vendor. The reality is that some products cost more because you also get a lot of support by using that product. And so that has an expense, and I totally get all of that. But if I'm a small business owner and the margins are telling a different story and I'm trying to run a successful business, I'm going to look at things that are going to reduce my margins and still provide excellent patient outcomes. So I'm looking at that too. I'm also, you mentioned the device graveyard. I want to understand, why are those devices in the graveyard? So like, do you have all of these devices and they work and we just need more training and education so that we can make these earn for us? Or are they really outdated devices, in which case let's sell them, let's get rid of them. Let's focus on the devices that are actually current, that people are asking for. I'd also just do a quick query and figure out what people are searching around me. Like, what are the most popular things people are searching for so that I know? But what I would say is that lights and lasers, great margin, but you have to have the right training and the people that are passionate behind it. Margin on injectables is going to be lower, but everybody's asking for it. So I might focus attention on that. And then one of the other things too is, I think it's reasonable to expect when you go into a practice, if you've purchased a new practice, that the team is all going to have things about what they want you to do, right?
Yeah.
We want this device, we want this treatment, we need new towels, we need new whatever. How do you guys prioritize those requests, and how do you evaluate those requests as you come into this new owner med spa?
I think first you've got to evaluate the budget.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to start where you're going to approve and not approve is, here's your budget. Here's what you can spend on expenses this month, this quarter, what's going to make the biggest impact, and what can wait for next month, next quarter.
Or next year.
And I also look at, what are they doing with the current devices that they have?
Yeah.
And when they purchased them, what did they do with them? What was the ongoing training like for them? So how are they keeping things fresh with what they currently have before bringing on something else?
I agree. And I think that comes with the evaluation of like, is this a dud, or is it just that we need to invest in some more training? And I'd start there first. I think on the side with the budget, as far as like, I'm thinking facilities too. When people are like, well, our stuff is just ratty and old. How do you guys prioritize like the actual appearance of your med spa versus some of the stuff that we've already talked about? Like, where does facilities and the aesthetic fit in?
I mean, that's super important, because that to me is like culture in the sense of like, that's the first view everyone gets of your med spa and the first impression. I think of it like if I go into a restaurant and I walk by the kitchen and it's filthy, I no longer want to eat at that restaurant. I've judged that restaurant based on the kitchen. And I have to imagine people would do the same thing in a med spa. Like, this is a medical facility where you are injecting product into my face. And so
But what if it looks okay? It's just old.
I mean, I think there's small things you can do to still give the appearance of cleanliness and that you care and that you take care of your med spa.
I think a missed mark is if people were like, you know what, I'm going to fix the foundation of the business first. Like, we've got to get I've got to read the P&Ls. I've got to meet with the team. We've got to figure out staffing. Like, we'll get to the aesthetic. Well, I think one of the biggest identifiers that something has shifted and changed is the aesthetic. And I mean, I'm Bob the Builder, so I'll go and I will paint the walls and I will like make subtle changes to furniture. I think that would make it pop. So for me, it's probably like one of the things I would do like in the first 90 days, to be honest. And it might not be the major shifts and changes. So maybe there's a 3-room clinic that I feel like could have 6 rooms. Am I putting up walls right away and hiring a contractor? No, I'm putting that out once I'm profitable and I can afford to do that and it makes sense. But am I putting fresh paint, updating the furniture, the finishes? Yes, because that to me is an easy win. And if this is going to be my practice, then I want it to reflect on me and my style and my aesthetic so that when people walk in, it feels like me. Because that's the other thing. This is not a director role, guys. We're walking in and we're now saying this is our med spa. So it is 100% going to be a reflection on you.
And for those small wins like paint and all of that, like that's a direct reflection of what's the rest of the place like. If you're not, if you can't fix something this small, what is everything else that you're skipping on? Maybe it could be the thought process.
And it can't be like too one-sided. It can't be all aesthetic and you've not fixed anything with the business because that's silly also. That's like putting lipstick on a pig. Like, I don't want to put lipstick on a pig. So like we have to do all of that. But there's this level of balance that I think I would strike. What about business name? Are you guys leaving the business as is, or are you guys changing the business name?
Changing a name of a business is tricky, but not at all impossible. In some circumstances, it can actually elevate the business depending on what did the community, what was their tie to that name and that brand previously? And 2, is there any tie to this new potential name, or is there even kind of a reputation with either one of them? And is one good, is one bad, or both good? And then I think that's what helps us decide if we keep it the same or if we change it. Once that decision's made, if we're going to change it, I think we just have to be very specific on that flow and that rollout. And like with everything we've said, you can't just go in and like be a bull in a china shop and destroy everything. Like, you have to take care of everybody along the way and carry them along with you. So a lot of communication and I think direct conversations and collaboration on if we decide if we're going to change the name. I think both can be done, but it's specific to the history of that med spa that is now yours.
I like that answer. Very practical. You agree with that?
I totally agree with that.
I totally agree with everything you've said. I'm still changing the name.
Write that down. Mark it somewhere. This is being recorded. I have it.
I agree with everything
happy.
you say, but did you notice how stubborn I am? I'm still going to change it. The only reason is it's like, this is now mine. Like, I don't want it to feel like I'm inheriting.
It's not just yours, though.
Something.
It's all of the people that have been there and
it's mine.
The legacy that has been created.
It's mine. And that's why we're all different, right? Because to me, it's like you're handing me keys. I'm going to be like, yes, like I'm going to do all the things to try to make it work. But ultimately in my head, I want to bring my vision to life. Yes, great. I have a built-in community, but that's why at the start of this, I was like, I would. So
you do that right out of the gate, or you're saying like maybe a year or two down the road?
I would gradually do it. Like, we've been a part of where it's not my business, but we've been a part of things where we're transitioning people from one thing to another. And I do think it takes time for the reasons Jess mentioned, which is the community has known you as something, what's good or bad, right? If it's bad, it makes it easier for me to change it. But if it's good, like you have to incorporate a story. But this is mine. Like, I get we serve the community, but this is my business. And I want it to be reflective of me as an individual and invite people into that story. Because along the way, as Jess mentioned, some of those people will stay. Some of those people will cycle out. When those people cycle out and the people come in, they're coming into my business, not a legacy business anymore. And I want to make sure that this business, from the look, from the services it offers, the people, and the name, are a reflection on me. So,
Do
And
you?
I feel
that's why
like,
Janelle says
while
I'm a narcissist. I
I
have
wouldn't take that
therapist
approach,
confirmation that I
but
am not,
you and I are
by the way.
different. I feel like that's very fair because it has to be authentic to you.
Mhm.
Otherwise, how are you going to carry it on if it isn't? And if you don't feel like it really is what you believe or your
Right.
vision, then no.
And otherwise, you're just
But
you're the
I can agree.
director, right?
This is such a great point, though, that we're having this conversation, because this is what happens in real life when we meet with people or have businesses,
Mhm.
right? Some people are so tied to it. Other people are like, no, I think it's time for this refresh.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, the mentality is the difference of being a director and being an owner.
Mhm.
Director is very different. We have to be, and as an owner, you should still be careful, but as a director, we're considering everyone's feelings and we're being cautious with founders and we want to honor the legacy. But you're coming in as an owner and you're creating your own legacy. The idea is how do I smoothly transition from this past, this history, into a representation of what my legacy will be? And that's a key differentiator between an owner and a director. And so for me in this exercise,
Mhm.
like that's kind of like one of the bigger things for me. Okay. In landing our plane, in closing this, I feel like this was a good conversation. It was challenging because I do think, to your point, Jess, it felt like we kind of stayed in a director role of like
Mhm.
how we thought about it, which is why I'm like, I want to go open shell, go in, what I would do. So I want to give a really brief summary from each of you, like quick, on what you would do if you had an open naked shell. I'm talking about like how many rooms, what are your finishes?
What are your finishes?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I can't.
Hold
I
on.
don't, that's not my.
Let me finish. Let me
Okay.
finish before you get to finishes. You can skip finishes if you want. I'm thinking full picture. Okay, so the shell. How many rooms? How many staff? What devices and products are you starting with? What services are you starting with? And yeah, so we said staff. So like type of provider, number of front desk manager. Janelle, go.
Okay, I'm starting
3 minutes.
conservative. I'm starting with maybe like a 3 or 4 room clinic, 1 strong injector.
Okay.
1 part-time, 1 full-time, 1 part-time injector, a manager.
Okay.
Part-time admin. Tox, filler, micro pen.
What kind of talks?
I'm not saying.
Okay.
Smart.
Yeah, tox, filler, micro pen. I don't know how much money we have, but if I do have a good laser device, maybe a Cyton BBL.
Oh, but we'll call that out.
Yeah. Shut up.
Shut up. Just shut up. Shut up.
What were your...
I said it finishes, but you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
That's where I'd start.
That's conservative. Are you open how many days a week?
5.
5 days a week? Okay. Jess, go.
Tuesday through Saturday.
I like that. I'm going to be very close to that. I would start out with 3 rooms. I would plan for this to be the beginning, and I just want it to be financially healthy. So I'm not going to plan for like large scale at all. 3 rooms, full-time injector. I'd want, depending on the state, somebody who can perform lasers outside of that injector, and an esthetician if it can't be the same person who could do the lasers. I'd start with just that, and then a manager, because since I'm the owner, I'll fill in part-time admin. Like I'll put in the sweat equity to make up for it. So I just want one manager who's going to also share the admin responsibilities. I like the closed Monday, but I wouldn't say Monday. I'd say open Monday because that's when we get our most phone calls. So I'd probably do open Monday. Everyone would hate me because I'd say be off Tuesday or Wednesday. And then Thursday, Friday, and I'd probably start with every other Saturday or 1 Saturday a month, just to make sure it makes sense before we really ask everyone to be there 5 days a week. Yeah.
Question:
Nice.
If you're the owner, would you think about you doing
What
the
about
calls
my
on
turn?
Monday
What
and
about
then
my
open
turn?
Tuesday through Saturday with your staff?
I would do it all. I would, if I'm the owner and I want this to like grow, I would do it all.
Yeah.
Anything that I could to make sure that we're still moving in the right direction, I'm going to do it. I'm the recruiter, I'm HR, I'm everything.
Love
I'm
it.
wearing every single hat except for injecting. Obviously, no one wants the hat. And I would I would limit to 2 different vendors when it comes to
Yeah.
our injectables, because I'd want to maximize what they're going to
Yeah.
give me. And I'm not going to get that if I'm opening the doors to everybody.
I
Okay.
agree.
Well, as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about other things that you guys didn't have the opportunity to comment on, but I'm
The
okay with that.
finishes?
No, the finishes. So I'm doing probably an in between the two of you, but closer to Jessica's. I think an esthetician is important because I think they're the gateway. So that way you can reach people who are not necessarily ready for injectables. So I would market a facial similar to like what EC does, where it's clinical, but it's like luxury. So we could get people through the door. I'm going to have one full-time injector, and I'm going to have, maybe I agree, maybe one part-time as well. I agree with Jess having just the clinic manager, and I would supplement. I would do the Tuesday through Saturday schedule. I would answer the phones. Even though it's closed, I would make sure that I was available to answer the phones. I'm definitely carrying retail, which we didn't talk about, but I'm absolutely
Yes.
curating
Yeah.
retail in a way that is going to be like a silent salesperson. So I love merchandising so that one of the draws from the exterior will be a beautifully curated shopping area of retail, very easy to identify again for passerby traffic that's going to come in and be drawn in by something that they don't have to see in the back area or behind a glass cabinet. And I'm introducing a CRM. So we didn't talk about software, but I'm definitely doing a CRM system. And I'm obviously investing in marketing, which you guys didn't have the chance. And my finishes are obviously going to be high end.
Oh my gosh. Well, sorry, Alpha. Sounds like we're opening a med spa.
Rebekah has thought about that way too much. But no, this was fun. I mean, it was interesting to see how like each of us would treat this med spa. Like I said, I think we got a little stuck in like this director role. So it was fun to kind of spiff at the end of like what that would actually look like. Next time we're going to talk about what our med spa names will be. Like I was going to say something is going to be off the cuff, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have restraint. And but next time I want to hear you guys' med spa names. Thanks for joining, Jess.
Yeah, thank you. That was
Thank
fun.
you for having me. I can't wait to do it again.